Hey, good evening. Welcome to CCKF Live, first one of 2023, and glad to see some people joining live, and also welcome to all of you guys that'll watch the video after the fact. I'm glad to have you all a part of this. Want to start off with just a couple things. We just had our first real tournament of the year at Falls Lake this past weekend, and with that, was going to show the standings or show the we'll say the standings, the results. So you can see. Had several people in the 60s, 70s, and even the 80s. Hank Vajon finished with 8 fish. His top 5 were 85 inches. Rick Morris had 6 fish. His top 5 were 84 inches, and they were fishing different parts of the lake. So it was good to see to find a couple patterns in different places. Also, Damian Irvin came in with 5 fish in third place at 79. Luke Greco caught 8 fish for 74 3/4 inches. Justin Finger, 5 fish for 74 1/4. And Brent Barnes rounded out our paying places at 70 3/4 inches. He had 5 fish. We had 65 anglers and a total of 145 fish turned in. So very good tournament for the first tournament of the year. 65 anglers, definitely happy with that. And glad that everybody got off the water safely. Also want to take a look at our monthly tournament for March and the current standings for that. So I'll have those for you. I'll be able to show those here for you in just a second. Here we go. So for our March tournament, you can see we've got some really big numbers turned in. Our top 5 are all above 90 inches, and Jeremy Hicks in first place is almost at 106. You can see he's got 4 fish 20 inches and over, and his 5th fish is 19 and a half for a total of 105.75 inches. Wilton Rogerson has got also 4 fish over 20 inches, and his 5th fish is 16 3/4. And we've got several. We've got some time to go in the month, so I do expect to see some movement here. I'm assuming you pronounce Deo Lee at 99 3/4 inches, and Juan Medina 92 1/4 inch, and Chris Decker rounding out 5th at 91 1/4. So we've definitely got some good things being turned in on the monthly tournament too. It's good to see, that's coming from all around the state. That's coming from a variety of bodies of water. So to see those things is nice. I do want to remind everyone our next tournament, in-person tournament, is April 15th at Lake McIntosh, and we're looking at hopefully a 6:45 launch and a 7 o'clock lines in. That's assuming that we can get the gates open early like we always do. I don't think we'll have any issues there, but I do have to head up there and make the we pay the people that show up early to open the gate, so I have to go up there and make those payments. So definitely definitely looking forward to McIntosh. There's a couple dogs in the background. Definitely looking forward to McIntosh in April. We've always fished it in a much hotter time of the year. So I think it'll be fun to get up there and spawn or spawn or post spawn, I would think, by April 15th. So we'll see. Tonight, as you all know, as you saw, we again are going to have North Carolina wildlife biologist Seth Mycko. He's going to talk a little bit about the lakes that are on our schedule for the year. He's going to talk about the dangers of introductions of Alabama bass into our water, and specifically how that could affect our Tar River Reservoir tournament, because I think it is an issue at Gaston, and Tar Reservoir is close to Gaston. And he's also going to talk about vegetation projects for the year, the status of those. So with that said, I'm going to bring Seth in. How you doing tonight, Seth?
I'm good, Mitch. How are you?
I'm doing good. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
It's been a
Thanks for
while since
having me.
we've done this, so
Yeah, it has.
it's good to get it back on the schedule. I think since our last one, you've had a promotion.
Yep.
I
So
believe
I'm
that
just
occurred after our last
yep
live. So
within the
uh,
district, but the district biologist now.
yeah, yeah.
So
So for those of you that, or for those that haven't participated and watched one of these before, if you've got a little bio, you can introduce yourself quickly. And
yeah, yep. So I'm Seth Mycko. I'm the district biologist, the district fisheries biologist, not the wildlife biologist, but just in charge of fisheries for District 5, which is basically everything from Greensboro to Durham, and then up to Virginia. So all the municipal lakes around Greensboro, all the Alamance County lakes, Jordan Lake, and then Mayo and Hyco up near Virginia are the lakes we're responsible for the game fish management of. So,
sorry, had to add myself back to the stream. I changed my background when I was off too to
yeah.
So we kind of filter the dogs out so they're not a distraction.
Yeah.
So really, I'm going to let you take it away. If
Okay.
you've got a presentation you want to show, or if you've got just want to start talking, however you want to do it.
Figure out here, share screen, present, share screen.
It's been a while since we've done it, so it's getting back in the hang of it. I'm clicking buttons all the time. When I'm doing it by myself and I'm wanting to share different screens and all that, I get lost in the buttons. All right.
All right. Can you see that?
Yeah. Yep. There we go.
So I'm based out of Mebane, North Carolina. I went to Clemson University for my degrees. Finished there, and my phone is over here doing something crazy. Sorry. Finished there in 2017. I've been in North Carolina ever since summer of 2017. I was a collegiate bass angler there at Clemson for a while, and now I'm more or less just a club angler here in Alamance County with a club. So a pitch for our podcast, our assistant chief and our coastal region supervisor, we have a podcast going now. Ben and Corey, they're calling it Better Fishing with Two Bald Biologists. So y'all can get this wherever you get your podcast, and Ben and Corey are covering some good topics out there on all the fisheries of North Carolina. I think they just actually had an episode on river herring down on the coast. So it's
and those guys are at if you've been to the Bass and Saltwater Fishing Expo in Raleigh, I think they were even at the Dixie Deer Classic, if I recall. And I know they were headed to the show in Greensboro, the boat and fishing show in Greensboro. So they're definitely getting out there. If you guys are at one of the shows and you see them, definitely walk up and talk to them a minute. I met Ben at the Bass and Saltwater Expo we always go on Friday to beat the crowd to that one. And I met Ben there, and I really was just walking up to say, hey, I enjoy the podcast. And it turned into 30 or 45 minutes of talking. So, I mean, and very interesting stuff and sharing stories. So if you guys get the chance, and I know, Seth, you've been at several shows as well.
Yeah.
I missed you at the Bass and Saltwater.
Yeah, I was early. I was on that Friday. I went there.
And I was there when the doors opened, so I was probably in and out before you even got to got there. And because I tried to keep my eyes open for you, I did see a couple Carolina Waters. Definitely saw them there. Definitely saw a lot of when we go to one of those shows, there's a lot of people that come in from out of town because they're trying to sell something. Yeah. So I always like seeing the local guys there. I mean, and there's no way I can name everybody. Like I said, I saw Carolina Waters, I saw Cashin, I saw Carolina All Out.
Yeah.
I saw Oh, Deep Creek Lures is always there. There was one vendor that was not there this year that I was looking forward to. The one that is always the very first booth when you walk in the main door. They have a huge amount of fishing rods and reels, and we always buy cheap Abu Garcia Black Max reels there.
Okay.
That we use for trolling for speckled trout down at the coast.
Gotcha.
And we pick them up from them for $25 or $30 a reel. And if it lasts 2 seasons, we've got our money's worth out of it. The salt water is bad on them, especially on a bait caster. So we've decided to go cheap and replace often, so that we don't ruin expensive Daiwa equipment or whatever whatever you're throwing Shimano. We're not messing those things up down at the coast. So
yeah, don't blame you. Yeah, and I actually just recorded with Ben and Corey, so we'll have a episode with me as a guest on there.
Oh, nice.
Months, listen to that.
Excuse me.
And just update about what we've got going on this spring and early summer. Of course, you'll see a lot of our boats out there across the state doing our black bass surveys. In D5 in particular, we're going to Jordan, Mickey, which is a small reservoir near Durham, Oak Hollow, which is over in High Point, and Camac here in Alamance County. I'm sure if anybody's down near the coast, they'll see our coastal staff, sampling shad and striped bass as they come up the rivers. They're actually probably already catching shad, I'd imagine, of the rivers there. Our walleye surveys will be going on at Lake James. And, of course, we've got mountain trout surveys. And then we've actually got biologists who do like mussel restoration projects. So they'll grow mussels out in Marion, and then they transport them across the state and, release them back into the river they come out of. A lot of those mussel species are actually federally endangered species.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we have a whole host of people out there doing that every year. So that's just a broad snapshot of what we got going on in this early part of the year.
Yeah, you mentioned Lake James. I was on Jordan yesterday, and tough conditions yesterday for catching them on Jordan.
Yeah,
and there was a very nice bass boat. It looked brand new in the same cove that we had gone into to get away from some of the wind. We were fishing as we went into the cove. We were fishing the left bank. He was fishing the right bank. We were throwing the same baits, and I heard a commotion, and I turned around and looked, and he pulled a bass out of the water. It looked pretty good from where I was. And he got really excited. He started telling us that was his personal best.
Nice.
And it was 7.2.
Okay.
7 pound 2 ounces caught on a jerk bait.
Okay.
So windy conditions, after a cold front come through, we all had the same idea of throwing a jerk bait to try to find something. And it was the only bite of the three of us. It was the only bite that any of us had gotten yesterday. And we had all been out there since the morning. I'd been on the water, 5.5, 6 hours at this point.
Yeah.
And we made, I made the comment. I was like, well, man, if you're only going to get one bite, that's the one to get.
That's right.
And it turns out he was a magistrate from up around that area. I can't remember what county he said, but Lake James is his home lake.
Okay.
And he fishes, I think he said Tuesday night tournaments there on Lake James.
Okay.
But his wife works for the Department of Instruction, and we had come to Raleigh for work for the day. And so he said every time he's not working and she comes to Raleigh, he's on Jordan. And nice guy, but it was a good fish. It was a real good fish. But my father-in-law's bass boat tournament fished out there a week ago this past Saturday. So a week and a half ago they fished. And the big fish out there that day was 9.3, and that guy didn't even place in the money.
Wow.
So, but the weather was completely different, that day than it was from yesterday.
Yeah, that was pre-front, right? So that was probably a lot better than what you were facing out there. They shut down.
It was better than being at work. So
yeah, that's right. So on the habitat front, which this will be, the meat of the summer, will be out there that, June, July, and August. But we're going to keep the project going at Gaston. we're going to continue our work down at Harris. I'm sure a lot of you folks have seen all our cages and plants we got going at Harris. Tuckertown's a young project we've started. Oak Hollow's rolling right along. Hyco is coming along slowly, I'd say. And then there's one other lake that we're hoping to start this summer as well.
I know we've got a lot of guys that fish Tuckertown, especially with CKA, when they have some things there. But we are definitely interested in Hyco. That's our last tournament of the season.
Yep.
So,
yeah, I don't know if there'll be much to fish this year by the time you get there, but maybe you'll see our signs out there while you're there. It's pretty slow progress at some lakes. But we're putting over 3,000 pots a year out there. And, these are founder colonies is what they're called. So, we're protecting those plants in hopes that they'll spread out from there. And these can be as small as 10 foot by 10 foot little 100 square foot enclosures and up to, 30 by 30 in some places.
So I know you've discussed it before. I see, stuff about it online all the time. Could you touch on why are we having to do these aquatic vegetable activities? The thing you always see is, well, the state is the one that went in there and sprayed and killed all the grass anyway. So if you don't mind, just touch on what the challenge is. And
yep. So what we want to do is get a suite of species that are native and non-aggressive in the lake. So if we can get, the lily pads and the spatterdock and the water willow like that grows at Jordan growing, then those are the species that the municipal water supplies and, just any lake manager is not going to dislike because it'll interfere with their operations of the lake.
Yeah.
So if we can get anything that's native and non-aggressive growing to a certain level, we'll never have lakes full of it, but if we can get 10 to 20 acres growing in a lake, then that'll give fishermen something to fish, and it won't be an issue for the lake managers either.
Well, I guess the water willow goes dormant through the winter, kind of dies back.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this, there's a good foundation still there at Jordan. Because my son kept throwing up close to the bank and getting hung up on the water willow that was just beneath the surface. It was hard to see, and I had to keep telling him quit throwing that kind of lure with open treble hooks next to the bank, right? That's what's going to get caught up. And,
they have rhizomes and they spread around, and it's easy to get hung in this time of year for sure, but hopefully it'll be by the middle of summer, it'll be back.
Once they fill out, I tend to get hung in them less. So
just everybody bear in mind and bear with us, especially at Harris and Tuckertown and Hyco, that these are 10 plus year projects. This stuff's not going to grow in 1 year, so hopefully we'll get it going and have some stuff. Even if we can't fish it soon, we'll have stuff for our kids and grandkids to fish down the road.
That's right.
So I guess we'll take some live questions on any of that stuff, and then we'll dive into some of the specific lakes that you guys are fishing.
Yeah, there hadn't been any questions really yet. If one pops up, I'll let you know.
Okay, I've only got one screen here today, so I'm looking at.
That's fine.
At this. So my lakes that I'm responsible for, that D5 is responsible for on your schedule this year, is McIntosh, Jordan, and Hyco. I can talk about fishing falls, but I don't know the data at falls very well. And Harris, I don't know the data very well either. So these are the three that I've chosen to really deep dive into the data on for you guys.
Okay.
But we can talk about fishing any of them if you got questions about fishing. I haven't been to falls since fall, so I heard there was 11.2 caught there a couple weeks ago.
Oh wow, I had not heard.
Someone pulled in an 11-pounder out of falls, so might be a good spring for Falls Lake this year.
And I think it fished pretty decent for us. Saturday of 65 anglers, over 40 of them actually turned in a fish. We typically have a there's always a good number of people that don't catch a fish in any of these tournaments. And
Yeah.
I had actually started thinking, hey, it had gotten to be a personal goal of mine, just judging it and watching it was like, hey, I hope we can get to where every angler turns something in.
Yeah.
And alas, it didn't happen, but we got close. So
in the Raleigh Rumble, that'll be any of the 3 lakes that you want to fish, or is that
no? So what we did,
municipal lakes?
Yeah, last year we did Lake Raleigh, Lake Wheeler,
Okay.
Lake Raleigh, Lake Wheeler, Lake Johnson,
Okay.
Crabtree.
Okay.
And so, but we did 5 smaller lakes, and you could go to any lake you wanted. You can move between lakes during the day.
Okay.
And so we're debating on whether to keep those same 5 lakes.
Yeah.
I know some people have suggested Lake Mickey. The issue that I have, I think we may end up staying with the same 5. The issue if we go out much further is, okay, now you've got to allow people more and more time to get back to the weigh-in, or whoever chooses to fish Mickey or Roxborough or whatever we add to the schedule, they have to leave earlier. If they're going to come to the weigh-in, they have to get off the water early to get to the weigh-in.
That's right, yeah.
So it's just more of a logistics issue to get there than anything. Now, we did have one question about thoughts on introduction of F1 bass to Jordan.
Yeah, so we might be able to do a whole episode on that this summer.
Okay.
We've been working on our plans for that. There'll be a few lakes, probably 3 lakes within the state we're going to do that at, and we'll hopefully have a lot to share with you guys on that front here in the next 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, we
and hopefully
so it sounds like it's definitely a plan then.
Yeah, for sure.
It's rolling.
For sure. Yeah, rolling right along.
What are some of the deciding factors or some of the influences to go that route, I guess is the
so we're trying to do it as scientifically as possible to see if it's viable across the state. We're choosing a mesotrophic lake, which is a lake with not a lot of fertility in it, a eutrophic lake, which would be Jordan, of course, and then like an oligotrophic lake, which is somewhat low, like very low fertility. So we're going to choose 3 of those lakes and then put them in each and see how they do at the different fertility levels.
Tag them somehow?
No, not necessarily tag them. We did tag some of the fish that went into Norman, and that was just a batch tag where we knew that those fish are from that initial batch. But we won't be very concerned about that going forward.
You just catch them in the survey as you do surveys.
Use fin clips and genetics to get their whether they're F1s or not.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll have a lot more details coming out about that in the next few months. And I'm sure some folks have heard about the nonprofit site that they've started where you can donate to the project.
I think so. Do you have
that money doesn't come to us, but it's going to eventually be given to us. So if anybody's
do you have any information on that link or anything?
It's ncf1bass.org, and that is that's in partnership with MLF and the Bass Nation. I think are both supporting that.
Yeah, I'm gonna display that really quickly if it'll let me.
But yeah, that won't necessarily be my baby. We have a research coordinator at every region. Sorry, and our research coordinator is heading that effort, and hope I can drag her on here, and we'll discuss all the nitty gritty of that.
This is that site. If you guys want to go check it out, you can see that Chuck Murray is the NCBASS president. Of course, most people know who Marty Stone is, and for Keith Joyce, I just have to read the bio here.
Yeah,
but he looks like he's been a tournament angler. So these are our 3, I guess the 3 that are heading it up.
Yeah,
and there's Corey. He's one of the two bald biologists, I believe.
Yep.
So yeah, y'all definitely go check check that site out, and I'll get your presentation back up there.
Okay.
And yeah, if anybody wants to donate to the F1 bass effort, that's where you do it. So
yeah, 50 cent, 50, 60 cent will buy one fingerling. So you can scale your math up from there.
So one guy saying, so CKA has a kayak tournament on Harris this coming Saturday, and one guy saying that he heard that someone say that they were asked to measure, take a photo of all fish caught, which will be turned into wildlife for studies. Is that?
No, not as part of the F1 project.
No, I don't know if it was part of F1. Do you know if that's just of course that's in a different district than you. So CKA might be working with whoever's over.
Yeah,
Harris.
I don't know. I'd have to ask. I'm not sure if that request came from us or not.
Okay.
So I'd have to look into that one.
All right, we'll move on for now.
Yeah. So you guys are going to McIntosh. First, McIntosh is great. Like I was actually there Saturday.
Was that with the Alamance Bassmasters?
Our little club here in Alamance County.
So is it Jacob Miles fishes with you guys? Jacob fished some tournaments with us, and it seems like he's doing more bass boat stuff now than kayak. So. But he was really strong in CKA and CCKF. So
yeah, he's a great fisherman. Him and we've got about, I think we're up to 7 or 8 boats now. So we're a small club in the grand scheme of things, but a good little group of guys that we get together about once a month.
Yeah.
And just to compare these 3 lakes, this was actually cool for me to see these 3 lakes on one page, just to show that how different Mycko is from the other 2. Of course, Jordan is a bass factory. 22% of our survey there in 2021 was over 18 inches. And then McIntosh is kind of a intermediate lake for us. It's got a lot of big fish, but it's got a lot of those, 2 to 4 pounders too. And 18 from you guys are worried more about inches than weight. So 18.7% of our survey there at McIntosh was over 18 inches.
Yeah.
And then you go up to Mycko, and only 2.8% of our fish out of 453 fish was over 18 inches.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's what everybody has said, is that Mycko is going to be a numbers game more than a length game. So you need you'll get your 5 quick, and it'll be tough to call them. But
not exactly sure why that is. It definitely doesn't get as much pressure as some other lakes do. It's pretty expensive to put in there. But yeah, it's got a lot of fish in it for sure.
That is one thing I'll mention. So any of the kayakers out there watching this, if you want to fish Mycko, thanks to one of our members, Dave Hart, he negotiated with them to get the kayak launch rates lowered.
Okay.
So I believe it's $10 to launch a kayak there now, as opposed to, it was $25 no matter what kind of watercraft you were launching previously. So that's one reason we moved. We decided to have a tournament there, is to show them appreciation, for making it a little more accessible for us. Not many people are going to pay $25 to launch a kayak.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and we just wanted to get some variation in our schedule this year. We had fished Jordan in the first 2 years. We fished Jordan twice. We fished Harris twice. We fished Falls twice. Yeah. If you notice, we're only fishing each one of those once this year, and then branching out. We're having a couple fewer tournaments, but we're also branching out a little more into where we're going. So, and still trying not to overlap with CKA very much and the other kayak trails.
I bet that's getting tough, ain't it?
Yeah. We want to keep 3 distinct trails, and but it's once we Tar River Reservoir seems to be a decent place for us to go. We looked at what's the other one in Wilson?
Buckhorn.
Buckhorn.
Yeah.
There's only one boat ramp at Buckhorn.
Yeah.
There's a couple roadside launches,
Yeah.
but there's only one boat ramp, and so we just didn't feel like it was conducive. It's still a guessing game how many boats are going to show up at a tournament sometimes. If we'd have shown up at 65 boats at Buckhorn, that probably wouldn't have been a fun tournament because people fighting over the boat ramp and things like that. Old school kayak tournaments, everyone launched from the same boat ramp.
Yeah.
And you went out and fished, but we're having more numbers now than we had back then.
Okay.
But I had actually thought about putting it out there and asking the guys, do we want to do one tournament that's old school, where everybody shows up to the same place, you pay cash at the ramp, you pay out cash at the end of the day, and there's no, you bring in your pictures. We could probably still do Tourney X if we wanted to. We would just have to, we'd have to withhold $5 out of each entry to cover the Tourney X fee. But just seeing, that's the way we do our Wildcats, and a lot of guys like our Wildcats. That's the favorite thing we do. Where we just do a Tuesday or a Thursday night, and we show up and fish from 5 to 8, and you bring in, you come in and you write on a slip of paper what were your best 3 fish.
Okay.
And then we're paying out depending on how we only check we only double check the ones that are placing in the money. Yeah. There's no points at stake. So once we figure out who's first, second, and third, we check their pictures, validate the links.
Yeah.
And that's, we have anywhere from 12 to, we had over 20 at a couple of events, to show up for a Wildcat like that. And we did one on a Sunday afternoon on a holiday weekend. So it was not a points thing. You didn't have to come. We did it on Lake Wheeler, and everybody had a great time there. I think we did that one for about 5 hours. I think we went from 12 to 5. And that was a good one. So that's an option for us to fish some of the smaller lakes, or do them as a Wildcat.
Yeah.
Not a points event. Not as many people will show up. So excuse me.
Yeah, but I guess the kayak trails are getting more numerous a little bit. Does it seem to be getting more popular across the state, or kind of just plateauing a little bit, or what do you think there on the kayak?
Saturday, I think I'd have to go back and look at last year's numbers, but I don't know if we had a tournament last year with 65 anglers.
Okay.
But what happens is everybody's ready to fish at the first of the year. And then as we get into summer, they've got more and more kids activities and things that people have to be a part of. And so it started, I think all of us see higher numbers at the beginning of the season, and it start to drop off as the season goes. Some guys will say, well, I'm not in a contention for the points race, so they don't mind missing one at that point. But the new trail in the West, Foothills, had a tournament Saturday. I can't remember what body of water they were on, but they had 67. And they're a new trail. Okay. Now, they're pulling a lot of the guys from the Charlotte metro area.
Okay.
When you talk about Lake Hickory and Lake James, it's not that far from Charlotte. So you've got a large population of people to pull from, in that Charlotte metro area. And I hope that they and Queen City can coexist. And one thing when I started was I don't want to step on the toes of CKA because we're very close geographically to them. Yeah. My demographic was a little different.
Okay.
CKA had been around a while, very competitive. And so my demographic starting out was, let's try to attract the guys in Raleigh and let's try to attract a lot of the guys that want to stay close to home. And, the tournament fees are a little bit less. Of course, the payouts are less too. I'm very proud of our payouts, for Falls Saturday, first place took almost $800.
Wow.
We paid out 6 places.
That's not bad at all.
At a basically a 30, our entry fee is $35. 5 of that immediately goes to Tourney X.
Okay.
So basically for a $30 entry fee, we were able to give first place right at $800. Big Bass was $300.
Yeah.
So 60 of the 65 guys, contributed $5 to Big Bass. So, Yeah, I mean, I think kayak fishing is still on the incline. I don't think we've reached the peak yet. I think I
Okay.
see more and more people on Facebook that I've not heard, in the Raleigh area, and I've never heard their name before, but I see them, whether they bought a kayak during COVID or what. I'm just seeing more and more activity, on social media from people kayak bass fishing, and not everybody wants to fish a tournament. That's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
I've said in our group many times that if we could have done it as a meetup group instead of a tournament and have as many people showing up, I would have been happy to do that. But the
That's
thing is,
right.
we would not get. You draw more people by having some money at stake than you do just having a social event.
Yeah.
And I can't do both.
Yeah.
But the most fun, the social aspect of it is the most fun I have in running the trail. And we have a group of guys that camp together now. That's
Okay.
open. That's open to anybody that ever wants to. Even if you don't want to fish the tournament, the camping group is. We posted out there on the group. Hey, we're going to camp at this time. This is where we're camping. If you want to get a spot, and we have a great time. We try to do 2 nights of camping when we can. It's getting harder and harder with work schedules. And,
Yeah. I hear that.
that whole social aspect of it. We're not going to say you have to be fishing in the tournament to camp with us. Hey, come camp with us and fun fish, or
That's
come
right.
camp with us and don't fish at all. Just sit around the fire and make up some fish stories like everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And none of us are. We have some really really good fishermen in the group,
Mm-hmm.
but in the camping group, a lot of us are. We love to do well in the tournaments. Myself personally, I'm never going to get paid to fish.
Yeah.
So and I don't expect to. It's like when I was playing golf, I'd get mad and slam a club, and my dad said, "You are not a good enough golfer, to be getting that mad over a bad shot."
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with fishing, right? I'm
That's
not
right.
a good enough fisherman to get mad if I don't do well in a tournament.
Yeah.
So, but I do it to meet other people and to,
Yeah.
the social aspect of it, like I said.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's good camaraderie.
yeah.
That's where our little bass boat club is.
Well, a comment was made this weekend about, hey, there's a bass boat tournament going out of this ramp at Falls Lake, and I just said personally, I'm like, hey, the reality of it is now is that with the population increase, of North Carolina's population is just increasing by the day.
Yeah.
And there's
By the
that's
minute.
a
minute.
that's a
Right.
product of a good state economy and good jobs, in the Raleigh area, in the Triad area, the Charlotte area. We've got really good and strong industry, so more people are coming here, and more people are taking advantage of the lakes. And it just means that every time we go out, there's several tournaments every weekend on just about every lake that's big enough to host a tournament. Even your small tournaments are having John boat tournaments, and your small lakes are having John boat tournaments and all that. So we're always going to be competing for water with other tournaments. Unfortunately, this past weekend we did have an incident.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, North Carolina Wildlife got involved. So when the bass boats blasted off, I guess one of them came really, really close to one of our kayakers.
Holy moly.
The kayaker did not flip. However, it rocked him hard enough that it broke the rudder on his kayak, and he ended up losing some tackle. He didn't lose any rods.
Yeah.
Most of his tackles floated. Most of his tackle boxes floated, right? So his crankbaits and all that, he didn't lose anything. Weights, hooks, all that, he lost those. They went down.
Yeah.
And so we actually had an angler offer. I had several anglers offer to make donations to him to help him. We didn't know at that time what he had lost. So Sunday I contacted him, and he was like, yeah, the only thing I really lost was hooks and weights. Everything else floated, and I had to replace some parts on my rudder. But the biggest thing is he was safe, right?
Yeah.
But it got reported to North Carolina Wildlife. They were looking for a bass boat of the description.
Oh, he didn't stop and apologize or anything?
No,
he was just so in the zone that he didn't even realize.
I hope that's what it was. I hope that he was so focused.
you can't say that you didn't see a kayak, probably, but I don't know.
Well, there's lots of factors. A kayak
Yeah,
sits very low to the water.
yeah,
One thing we always stress to our guys is try to have a flag,
yeah,
right? That's an easy thing to put on there that's safe. If you're launching in questionable light,
yeah.
have a light that's visible 360.
Oh,
State
yeah,
law states that anyway, right?
yeah,
That you need a 360 light.
yeah,
And but a lot of the kayaks are made in a camouflage color. You get lots of grays, greens, a lot of muted colors on kayaks. You get a lot of bright colored kayaks too. But if you've got a green camo or a gray, it just makes it even harder to see on the water, I think, for
yeah,
the bass boaters sometimes.
yeah,
So, it's I equate it to like a motorcycle.
yeah,
You've got a certain amount of responsibility yourself to drive defensively.
yeah,
But there's also a responsibility on everyone else because
yeah,
we have to, on our car, we have to share the road with motorcycles, bicycles, pedestrians. Same thing with bass boats, wakeboard boats, whatever kind of boat it is.
yeah,
We're all sharing that same water.
yeah,
And none of us, there were two drownings on Jordan in 2 weeks.
yeah.
And none of us, one on a jet ski, one in a 16, 17-foot boat.
Yeah, with 4 people in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that was a little questionable, right? It's kind of like, it's
Yeah.
the same thing. Like if you're a bicyclist and you ride down I-40, I don't know that you should complain too much about the traffic.
Yeah.
If you've got 4 people on a 17-foot boat on a high wind day,
Yeah.
that's a questionable decision.
Yeah.
And all 4 of you should have on life vests, even though the state doesn't say you have to have it on. If you're in a boat,
you have to have it in the boat, but not on.
you got to be responsible. You got to take some personal responsibility. I'm not saying it was their fault that the person drowned. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
It's a 50, maybe it's not even quite 50-50, but when you participate in an activity, you need to do everything you can to ensure your own personal safety. And if you're in something that could affect someone else, you have a responsibility to be safe towards others.
That's right.
And it's tough. I have motorboats, I have powerboat, and I have a kayak. So when I'm in my kayak, I expect everyone else to look out for me.
Yeah.
But that's because when I'm in my boat, I'm always trying to look out for smaller boats and kayaks and personal watercraft and whatever else is out there. I even try to be courteous to a guy that's fishing on the bank, if you believe that or not. So.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll bring up one more thing, and then I'll stop derailing you from giving your
No,
presentation.
you're good. No worries.
For those of you that may not have seen it, Hank Majan shared a video clip from the MLF event in the Charlotte area, where one of the guys that fishes with us from time to time, he's from Sanford, Drew Blair, was actually fishing in his kayak. Mark Daniels was there in his bass boat. Mark made that ask of, "Hey man, do you care if I fish? I don't want to take your water away from you. Do you mind if I fish here?" So Drew got TV time where he gave Mark the water, said, "No, man, go ahead. You're fishing for money, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
And then Mark pulled out a great bass right there in front of the Drew. So, but that was good publicity for kayak fishermen in general.
Yeah.
Good publicity for Drew, but good for the fishing community as a whole, right? To show some of those unwritten rules that we have and those courtesies that we give each other that you don't, when we run a tournament trail, believe it or not, I've gotten, comments and emails and texts before where, "Hey, so-and-so in this boat, kind of came in and I had this area that I was fishing and someone else came in." And so we published last year kind of some of the unwritten rules, the etiquette of kayak fishing, and kind of roughly establish some distances, right? A kayak doesn't cover water as fast as a bass boat.
That's right.
So if you've got this really, really long bank, maybe 2 or 3 kayaks can share that bank, but don't come 50 foot in front of someone and just assume that's your water to fish. Be courteous and say, "Hey, are you getting ready to fish this? Do you care if I cut in?" And if the person says, "Hey, I've had my eye on that piece of structure and I'm slowly making my way up to fish it," respect them, and it'll come back on you when the next time you're fishing somewhere, hopefully it'll come back to you, karma, if you want to call it karma.
Yeah.
Somebody will ask you before they jump in front of you and fish
Yeah.
fish whatever it is you hadn't had a chance to get to yet. So
That's right.
anyway, what's your next slide?
Yeah, it's cool to see the different distributions at those lakes and see them all on one sheet. But yeah, we've got some best sites here. I think I've already shown this once. These were our best electrofishing sites at Jordan back in 2021.
I'll take those down real fast. No, I'm just kidding.
Of course, Bush Creek, if you put out Farrington, go all the way up to the right there in the back. It was a little bit high and flooded when we were there at Jordan, so that back of Bush Creek there was real hot for us. And then the actual causeway, the riprap at the Bells Church Bridge was a real hot spot.
So I'm looking, I think it's covered up so that where I just saw the guy catch the 7.2 yesterday is very close to that Halls River point on the right, on the right-hand picture, probably right in there. So you've got right across from the dam. The locals call it Millionaire Island.
Right in
so
here.
There's a big island right across from the dam. If you're on the dam looking out, it's to the left. And then once you go past that island, there's a cove. Once you start heading up the Hall, there's a cove on the left, and it has a rocky point that comes way out at the mouth of the cove. And I think it's right under where your stuff is. And I'm having it on the presentation. Well, let me enlarge the screen. Yeah, it's somewhere right in there where your cursor is.
Okay.
And, it was one of the few places that we could get out of the wind. I had been all the way up to Stinking Creek. I had been all the way up to Robeson Creek. And as we were coming back, we said, hey, we're going to fish this last cove on the right before we make the turn to head back to Pose. And and that's where we saw that guy snag that one on he had a brand new live scope. On this brand new bass boat, he had a brand new live scope that he said his wife was about to divorce him over. I think he had it was at least a 10, maybe even a 12-inch Garmin screen there that he was looking at. Okay. And he was like, his power poles, he had actually had an issue, and he said he went to drop his power poles and he heard something and he looked back and there was hydraulic fluid.
Oh no, he busted a line.
On his power poles. So he was like, man, he's like, he said, when I had that jerkbait in there were 3 or 4 following it. And I caught this one, and I can't because of the wind. He was like, I can't get back over there to where I was. And he's like, but he couldn't even drop his power poles. But he was, his power poles were good for 8 feet of water, and he was sitting in 10 when I was talking to him. So, but yeah, I'm definitely familiar with all of these Jordan areas.
Yeah, behind that island here at Pose, that's where we caught a lot of big fish. Granted, this was. Excuse me, this was the end of April.
Yeah.
So this was pretty much full spawn. We try to get there. We can only get them if they're in 6 to 8 foot of water or less. Yeah. We try to hit it at peak spawning time.
Well, that 9.3 that was caught last Saturday in that other tournament was on the I call it the front side and the back side of that island. The front side of the island has the fish attractor, and it's like really deep. Yeah. And then the back side is the cove that comes back in there, and there's a road bed back at the back of it. Yeah. Somewhere on the back side, and I don't know the exact spot, is where that 9.3 was caught. Okay. And so that Pose Ridge area is a lot of times it's feast or famine over there. Yeah. But there are very close to that Pose circle. There's a hump out there in the water out in front of that island between the island and the dam. Yeah. So I know in the summertime I see a lot of guys hauling some big ones up off of that hump. Then there's another hump back over towards the S turns right before you get if you're heading from that direction to the right fork.
Yeah. Does that have a buoy on it?
It does have a buoy on it too. Yeah. Yeah. It is right before you start going through the S turns there. So
I've never fished there before. I need to try that spot out sometime. I'm between boats right now, so I'm really easy to get a boat and get back out there whenever I can.
Living in Sanford, from my house to Pose Ridge boat ramp is 12 to 15 minutes driveway. Oh wow, driveway to ramp. Yeah. So I'm really, really familiar with. I call that the bottom end of the lake. Yeah, I'm really familiar with Pose all the way up to to the Roberson Creek area. We used to go. We used to go anchor up above, close to the Robeson canoe launch, where all the rocks are.
Yeah.
Where it gets tough for bass boats. We used to go anchor a pontoon boat down there and stay all night catfish and sleep on the pontoon boat.
Yeah.
It was me, my father-in-law, and his dad. And my son was too young at that time to go. And a little bit, yeah, probably a little bit south of where your cursor is. Probably about halfway between the actual Robeson Creek and then that green, right in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where you'll start getting, if the water level's low at all, it
Yeah.
can get dangerous for fast moving boats in there.
Yeah. Our electric fishing boat has a prop scar from about right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we try to sample the white bass there when they run up the haul. We go up there.
Yeah.
That's how high up as we can get.
That was a hot area for us to catch hybrids when Jordan was starting with hybrids. They liked that fast moving, coming in from the haul, and then on the tail race, if you didn't want to be in a boat, you get in the tail race down there at the dam.
Oh, okay.
And throw a rattle trap into that fast moving water where it dumps back into the haul before the confluence of the Cape Fear, but basically right there at the dam. They would eat up chrome and blue rattle trap right there.
Okay.
Those hybrids would eat those up. So
we'll be in a Moroni ebb time for Jordan here for a few years. We're not stocking hybrids immediately, and then we haven't stocked stripers in about 3 years. So there won't be a ton of stripers and hybrids to be had at Jordan for a while, but hopefully we'll bring them back in the next few years.
And Bush Creek, I know it. Not as well as I know Bell's well.
So if the lake gets high, if the lake gets to that 220, 219, all the way back here where all these bushes are is where you want to be.
And if you guys watching, if you see us, we'll be at the bottom of the screen a minute, and then I'll move us over to the left of the screen. I'm trying not to cover up the presentation and things. So you see Bell's Bridge. I know in some of our kayaks tournaments, guys will launch there at the Bell's.
Out of Bell's Church up here. Yeah.
It's very easy launch there out of that parking lot for a kayak. And some of them will come all the way down from Farrington Point.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
To fish up there as well. So they come right, they'll start up there at that Bush Creek area and then come all the way down.
Yeah.
Bush Creek, I don't know if everybody realizes it or not, but when MLF fished there the first time, Bush Creek is where some of the guys got their bass boats through the culvert.
Yeah, they were pushing
back there at the road, and I mean, it was amazing to me that they were able to get a bass boat through there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and believe it or not, like after the Farrington Road Bridge, this area of the lake is not a great area for us.
Oh,
I'm not sure why that is. Not sure if there's too much sedimentation up there or what, but we don't really catch a lot of bass in the spring in that whole north end of the lake.
I don't catch a lot of bass up there, period.
I'm not sure why that is. That's always been a question mark for me at Jordan. It's real mucky up there, so that could have something to do with it.
It is. It's shallow.
Yeah.
And it's mucky. I would think that spawn, because of the shallows, I would think it would do well.
Yeah.
I've caught a few in that of the two coves that are pointing up. So the one closest to the Bush Creek, that one you're in right there. I've caught some there off of laydowns.
Okay.
I just got lucky. Yeah. I had fished all day and not caught anything, and I started throwing a spinner bait on some of those laydowns.
Okay.
And I did catch a couple right there, so I didn't get skunked in one of the bass boat tournaments because of that. But we had moved back up there. We had launched out of Farrington. It was getting late in the day. I always like to be close to the boat ramp late in the day. I don't want to take a chance on the motor not firing up, not being able to get back to the boat ramp or whatever. So it is a boat after all.
Yeah. I'm hopefully curing some of those issues. I just sold my old boat with the Johnson on it, so we'll see what we upgrade to.
Yeah.
And then McIntosh, as some people might know, McIntosh is basically split down the middle of Huffman Mill Road. So the right side of the road, the dam side, and the east side of the lake is all electric motor only. So you can't have any gas motor on that lower end of the lake. And our best sites on that side were right up here, just near the water plant, and then
Before the dam, before the dam though.
before
Yeah,
the
see,
dam,
yeah.
the cove back there, and then all the way down past the dam, almost to the bottom of the lake here, a little cove cut at the bottom of the lake.
So where those just above that right hand circle, I love the way that looks in there. There's there's not much of a transition. It's pretty much a straight drop right there. It's 8 foot deep right on the bank.
Okay.
And when I'm there, I'm always throwing a glide bait or I'm throwing something. I'm like, if I was a bass, I wouldn't last long at all because I'd fall for every lure. Because when I walk into the store, I fall for every lure already. So
yeah.
But I love the way that area looks right there. I did get to fish with Justin Faircloth. We did some fun fishing. Okay. I did not realize at that time, I'd only been to McIntosh once or twice. I didn't realize it was electric only. When you come out of that boat ramp, you go to the right. I didn't realize that was electric only.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad I learned that. I fished it several times, but I do tend to fish at the other end more often.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the only area I know as far as like fishing with rod and reel. I've never even thrown a cast on the east side of the lake, but we've shocked up some good fish down there on that side for sure. And then on the gas motor side, before the second bridge, there's a big long cut that goes north. It gets real shallow in the back. The back of there was real good, and then kind of just a main lake cove was good for us that year. This was all the way back my first spring of sampling, 2018.
Yeah, I'm trying to get I might have to make it full screen again so I can see this, get my bearings on this one. Okay, so the launch is way over there next to 61, right?
Yeah, so it's over here.
You're coming all the way down that river channel and getting in that bass boat area between the two bridges. And
some people call this the second bridge. Some people call it the first bridge.
Yeah.
So before the first bridge. So those were our best sites there at McIntosh from 2018, which, that could have changed drastically by now. We need to probably get back there in the next year or two. We've got so many lakes to survey. It's hard to loop them all around.
Yeah, a lot of lakes and limited resources to do them, right?
And then at Mycko, Cobb Creek, which is you go through the canal. So Mycko is unique in that it's very dendritic. It's got a lot of little fingers and arms. So if you go out of the boat ramp, take a left, and then cut left, there's a little canal that they've man-made a canal through here. You got to go all the way through that canal and then to the back of Cobb Creek. We caught some big ones there. And then if you go right out of the ramp, past the main bridge there was just a cove. The third cove on the left past the Highway 57 bridge was probably our best site of last spring. Definitely our biggest fish came from there. But we catch fish all over that lake. We calculate what's called a catch per unit effort in bass per hour of electrofishing, and it's over 100 at Mycko. So we're catching fish everywhere at Mycko.
Wow. Yeah, that's what I've never fished Mycko, but like I said, I always hear you'll catch a lot of fish. They just won't be big fish, but you're going to catch a lot of them. So
yeah. So those are the two hot spots for big bass in our survey. But I'll bet you could throw a kayak in right at the ramp and go 100 yards and start catching fish.
Nice.
Excuse me, I've been under the weather today.
Oh, sorry to hear that, man. Uh-oh. Here we go. Yeah,
these are the critters that were, and especially coming off of the red crest at Norman, I figured it was good to touch back on this again and just remind everybody of the dangers of what that lake's full of. I know there was like a 4.7 pounder caught.
Yeah.
One day, but that's
rare, unusual.
Right? That's a rare Alabama bass. That's a monster. And it's sad to say that a 4.5 pounder is a monster, but.
And when I started, I was talking to someone today and telling them, "Hey, you're doing this broadcast tonight. We're going to talk about Alabama bass in the in North Carolina waters." And they're like, "Well, what's an Alabama bass?" And I was like, "Well, I think you'd probably call it a spotted bass.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you catch it and you're going to call it a spot or a spotted
Yeah.
bass. And, but it's a strain of Alabama bass. It's invasive. It's not
So
natural
they're
to North
native.
Carolina waters at all. So
yeah, they're native to the Coosa River in Alabama is where they get the name. And they get pretty big in the Coosa, but for some reason you put them in Reservoir, North Carolina, and they do not get very big. But yeah,
you guys don't know. I definitely don't know. So
we genetically confirmed, or not we. I was only 17 years old when this happened, but they genetically confirmed the difference in 2008, and they used to be considered a very a strain of spotted bass, but now their true scientific name is Micropterus hinshawi. So they've been separated out from spots. And they were introduced to Norman and Belu's a good many decades ago, at least in the late 90s. So we're going on, at least 25 years at a couple of those lakes. Gaston is our recent lake. They've been in there since about 2016, we think, based on how old those fish are. And all of those were illegal introductions. The state of North Carolina has never stocked Alabama bass in any reservoir. So those were all fishermen moving them throughout the state. And
I didn't realize we were so close together in age. You were 17. I think I was around 20.
Okay. You look good for that age.
Yeah, I've lived a rough life, but
yeah,
I'm not much older than that now.
Yeah. So this is the range of the native versus introduced range. So you can see Alabama is the native range of the Alabama bass. It's the Coosa River and Flint River, not Flint River, but there's another river in there. And then they're all throughout North Carolina. This actually should be updated to like almost the entire state of South Carolina now.
Oh, really?
And then, they're all throughout a lot of the Catawba lakes now. And I think I have a more detailed North Carolina shot of them here soon. Okay. But yeah, they're being spread throughout the Southeast, and we don't like to see it because we've seen what can happen at Norman, and we're worried about that happening at other reservoirs,
right,
in the state. And like at Gaston right now, I think they're catching some big fish and seeing good tournament weights with them, and they start out great, right? The first 12 to 15 years, you get some big bass and some big tournament weights. Everybody loves them. But as they approach their carrying capacity, the individual size of the fish decreases. So each lake you can only have so many bass in each lake, right? Like a farm pond. At a farm pond, if you don't harvest your bass out, they'll all start to stun out on you. I'm sure a lot of people have fished a pond where all the bass are like 12 to 14 inches. And it's similar effect, like we see at Lake Norman, where there's so many in there that each bass starts to shrink up over time.
Yeah.
And they're competing with all the other bass, so that creates carrying capacity issues, and it's just a bad deal in general. We don't like to see it. So you can see here where the mean size, theoretically, you'd have the mean size just level out at a certain point for each lake. But if you put Alabama bass in there, it's going to slowly continue to drop until it levels out at an even lower mean size of bass. So I don't think anybody out there wants to see a lower average size bass in any of their lakes they fish.
Absolutely.
And we've seen that happen at just about every lake in North Carolina where they've popped up. We've been able to watch them. They follow this general trend. Moss Lake has went through it, and it's a pretty bad deal. So from a tournament perspective, the weight wise, for bass boat tournaments, weights are going to drop 5 to 8 pounds, especially after 10 years, and even closer to 10 pounds after 20 years. We watched that happen at Hartwell. The 90s, I remember when, the late 90s, early 2000s, you could catch 24 to 26 at a Hartwell, and now 17 is a good day at Hartwell.
Wow.
So
one guy states, Brian Ward states, that he heard on a recent podcast that one of the benefits of the F1 bass is that they could overtake the Alabama bass. Is that
I wouldn't say overtake. They will definitely compete. Theoretically, they'll compete better because they're supposed to be more aggressive than your run-of-the-mill largemouth.
Okay.
So they'll definitely be a better competitor. But we're definitely not going to be doing it as a method to counteract Alabama bass. It's just
Right.
to put some largemouth that potentially will grow faster.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the big thing with F1s is that they'll grow quicker at an earlier age. They'll be a little heavier. So, and some people will tell me, well, one lake might be better for Alabamas, or my lake's good for Alabamas. I'm like, no, some lakes are just not good for any bass. If it don't grow a good, big largemouth bass, it's not going to grow a big Alabama bass either. So I think that's what we saw happen at Norman, where there was good success in the early years, and now it's fizzled out to those.
Well, I was going to say, and they might it might be exactly what you mentioned before of when you first introduce them, that first 5 years.
Yeah.
You'll catch good size, but then as they proliferate through the lake, once there's more Alabama bass there and there's the native bass, now you've just got more fish in general and limiting sizes. So
yeah. And you can see here on this was the actual Norman data in our catch per unit effort at Norman. So you can see our largemouth started to drop as more and more Alabamas got in the system. And now they've even leveled out to where we're not even catching as many Alabamas as we used to because they're competing with each other so much. So I think this is what we'll see at Norman in perpetuity. This lots of little Alabamas and a few largemouth here and there. So we don't want to see that happen at Jordan Falls, Harris, or any of our local lakes around here for sure.
Wouldn't affect me much at Harris, but I do tend to catch some fish at Jordan, and I don't want to see them get smaller.
So this is our current, as of fall, genetically confirmed Alabama bass lakes are Norman, Mountain Island, which is just below Norman down here, small reservoir. James has Alabama bass in it, which has a whole different issue for the smallmouth bass in Lake James. That's its own story in and of itself. And then Fontana, all the way back in 1996, which that was probably part of that early Savannah River, when they were getting into Savannah, they were probably put in Fontana as well. Gaston, we're hopefully getting genetics back from Gaston. This is the year we think they might have been put in there as early as 2012-ish, 2013. We think they're in Tillery. There's been some Alabama-looking bass in Tillery, Wiley, of course, because it's on that same system. Hiwassee and Hickory. We think that maybe the fish up in Hickory are the same strain there from Norman. And luckily, we don't have any Alabama bass in Jordan, Harris, or Falls, and we're hoping to keep it that way.
Yeah.
So
if they're being seen in Tillery, or if they're found in Tillery, is it a safe assumption that they either are or will be in Baden and those other chains pretty soon?
Yeah. I collected one at a tournament at High Rock that looked suspect to me. Mm-hmm. But there's also some spotted bass in the Yadkin, so we're not sure if that was a true spotted bass or not,
or an Alabama.
Hopefully we'll get genetics on that. We don't do our genetics in house, so we have to send everything to Auburn and wait on results. So it can be a slow process to get the genetic results back. And hopefully some folks are learning the lesson now that Norman's gotten to where it's gotten.
I hope so.
Hopefully no one's moving these fish around anymore. But yeah, we think Tillery. We think that Tillery was an intentional introduction. It wasn't like fish coming through the dams or anything.
Okay.
We think it was intentional. And we know that Gaston was, for sure. So we're going to be putting these signs out at some boat ramps. If you want to protect your largemouth fishery, you need to harvest any Alabama you catch. And that'll help, both fisheries. At Norman, if we harvest some of those Alabama bass, it'll help the Alabama bass get a little bigger, and it'll also help the largemouth. So it'll be a win-win situation. And the easiest thing for all of our central North Carolina lakes is just no tooth patch. So if you catch a bass and it doesn't have that little rough spot on its tongue, you're good to release it. But if you catch a bass at Falls, Jordan, Harris, Gaston, any of those lakes, and it has a tooth patch on that middle part of the tongue, do not release that fish. It needs to go away. And you can take a picture of it and call us and report where you caught it. And we'll go from there. So you'll see these signs, especially at lakes close to lakes, at lakes close to Gaston and lakes close to Blues Creek. We'll be putting these signs up at the boat ramps. And now we have no daily creel and no size limit on Alabama bass. So if it has a tooth patch, no matter what the size, you can keep them all. So,
Yeah, but we've been preached catch, release, catch, release, catch,
Yeah,
release. We're already fighting
man.
that battle of everybody's
It's
releasing
tough.
everything. So,
but especially at the Raleigh lakes, we don't want these critters in our Raleigh lakes. So if you find a tooth patch on a bass in a Raleigh lake, we don't want it in there. And then this is just a recap of what we've seen at Lake Norman, the Norman specific impacts. The spike came after about 7 years. So after 7 years, it was good. And then it was just a slow decline after 7 years in the lake. And largemouth growth rates have tanked. And now even the average size of the Alabama has decreased since that initial 7-year increase. It's a good short-term thing, but a terrible long-term thing. And there's not much we as managers can do about it. Once they're in the system, our hands are really tied with them. We can't do much about them being in there. And then at Gaston, we're seeing this kind of inflection point happen in front of our eyes now, where we're catching slightly more Alabama bass than we are largemouth bass at Lake Gaston. And we're afraid that's just going to continue down that, the Norman trend where one goes up and the other goes down. Gaston could be a different fishery because it's got more vegetation. So that could help the largemouth, but overall, I think we'll see a similar trend.
Once they get established, there's not much we can do to reverse it, is there?
No, not really. There's nothing we could do short of killing the entire lake, which is not a good idea. So
right.
And we just want nobody to never move any live bass between lakes. And I think there was someone who actually got in trouble for this on Facebook a few years ago, where he admitted to taking a largemouth from Jordan or something and brought it somewhere else. And that is illegal. You're not allowed to transport a live fish from one lake to another in the state of North Carolina. In the Raleigh area, look for that tooth patch and harvest that fish. Harvest as many of those Alabamas as you can if it has that tooth patch. That's a little different in the smallmouth lakes because the smallmouth can hybridize and have a tooth patch sometimes.
Okay.
So that's not a hard and fast rule throughout the state, but look for that tooth patch in our neck of the woods. And in general, everybody's out there talking fishing and talking at boat ramps. Spread the word at how bad these fish can be for consistently high tournament weights and, in y'all's case, lengths. A 14-inch largemouth is going to be better than an 11-inch.
Oh, yeah.
It's Alabama bass all day long. So spread the word and make sure no one's moving them anymore. We don't want to see them spread. And this is not a fair comparison. You can probably guess what two lakes these are. But these are two recent tournament results from a lake with Alabama bass and a lake without Alabama bass. And I always tell people, largemouth bass won't disappear, but which one of these tournament weights do you want to see out there? I'd rather catch 5 fish for 38 than 5 fish for 17 myself. But I would
rather, but I'm also happy when I catch the 517.
And this on the right, these were the best fishermen in the nation, or even arguably the world at bass fishing. This was the red crest on Norman.
Oh man.
So you can see that average. I'll bet the average 5-fish stringer at the Red Crest was probably 12 to 13 pounds. But yeah, we don't want to see any Alabama bass moved.
Yeah.
Anytime
We'll definitely
soon.
try to help spread the word. So.
Yeah. But after that, these are the biologists throughout the state. District 5, we just hired a new biologist with me in District 5. Her name's Dancy. So you can reach out to me or Dancy in District 5, and then everybody else are in these districts throughout the state. We've got folks working on fisheries throughout the state now and keeping an eye on things for you guys.
Well, I know I appreciate what you guys do. I come into contact with several of the guys on the hunting side, and then you and now I've gotten to meet a couple bald biologists. So I definitely appreciate all of your efforts. Sometimes I think you guys, I think my job as a tournament director and your job, are similar in the fact that sometimes it's like being a school superintendent. That nobody's, not everyone is going to like every decision you make, So, the superintendent, if they call for snow and he cancels school, they fuss if it doesn't snow. And if he doesn't cancel school, they fuss for putting the lives in danger, for the kids. So everything we do is going to get second guessed sometimes, and that's just the nature of what we do. But I definitely appreciate what you guys do. I definitely appreciate a lot of the information that I have gotten from you as a part of these broadcasts.
Happy to do
it. And I definitely try to spread that as much as I can. When I hear some people saying things out there, a lot of times I'll step up. I've even referred people back. I was like, you should go. I don't even tell them who I am. I'll just say, hey, you should go watch this video and forward it to about this time mark, and kind of listen to this explanation of what's going on, and not be so hard on people. Sometimes, they're doing their best to make it better for us. And we know it's a long-term investment, right? We've just got to make it better for our kids.
Yeah.
It's not just fishing. It's the world in general, right? We've got a responsibility to make it better for those after us. So.
Yeah, our vegetation work is probably more in that realm where we might not benefit from it ourselves, but if we can get it going now, then it's a couple generations down the road could benefit.
That's right. And I've seen people make comments just about the vegetation projects. Well, it's not working here, it's not working there. It's a long-term project.
Oh yeah.
And just because this particular patch may not have taken, it doesn't mean we shouldn't try.
Yeah.
Right. We've got a responsibility to try to do it right. And we're paying the price for sins of the past. Right. Sins of our fathers, is that, what they want to call it, when there were no creel limits and, you shoot as many animals as you want and you take as many fish as you want, and we've realized now that, hey, we can manage these things and make it better for everybody. So,
right.
So I definitely appreciate everything all of you guys are doing.
Yeah.
And I think I speak on behalf of the club when I say that. I think through this information sharing, I think everyone else has gotten an appreciation for it too.
Yeah. We'll plan for middle of summer for a whole F1 update and roll out those plans for you guys.
Good. So with a name like F1, I guess they're really fast.
Well, they're supposed to be. They're supposed to grow faster and bite better. So it's supposed to be good all around, and we'll see how it goes.
Well, I appreciate your time tonight, man. I appreciate it every time you take part. This was I don't know if most guys watching know or not, but I think this was more your idea than mine.
I think so.
I think it's a good outreach effort by the state. I'm glad that we can host it and help facilitate. And hopefully, the videos we did last year, we may not have had a whole lot of people watching live, but we got a lot of views after
Yeah, we
the fact.
did. Yeah.
And
I was happy to see
so I'm
that.
anticipating that to keep happening, and look forward to our next one.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right. Hope you
All
have
right.
a good night, man. Thank you very
You too.
much.
We'll be in touch.
All
Thank
right.
you.
And with that, I'm going to end the stream here. If I guess you can continue to post questions in the video comments, and I'll make sure that if I see them, I'll try to point them out to Seth and have him come back and answer them in the comments so that they're public for everyone. But I appreciate all of you watching, and I hope you got some good information out of this. I always enjoy this, and I hope you guys have a good night.